Hey everyone, today I'm joined by former ATF undercover agent Ignacio Esteban. Today, me and Ignacio are going to be talking about some of the undercover stories that he went through. Ignacio talks about being involved in the 2002 case of the DC snipers. Ignacio also talks about El Chapo and why he wrote the book about El Chapo. Ignacio is always coming out with new books, so I'll put a link in the description so you can check out all of his books if you want to go and purchase any. Also, please don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to get more interviews like this. And without further ado, let's get into Ignacio's story. How's it going, man?
Hey, man, good. It's nice to be back on your show again, Adrian. I enjoy it. Thank you so
Yeah, I
much.
appreciate
I've been doing the rounds, but I like your show. Thanks again, buddy.
Yeah,
Congratulations on your successes here.
yeah, and I appreciate you thinking of me to come back on, man.
For
And
sure, for sure.
I've been watching all your other shows as well, so
Oh, thank you. All right.
you're
That's
definitely
right.
been
They can
doing
find
rounds.
us, as you know, as YouTube. You can put our names in, and you can see all our shows. So you can find us and our books.
That's true. Well, today, you know how we can first start, diving into this. You wanted to talk about the book you wrote about the DC snipers, right? So, kind of explains to the people what that means.
Sure.
What happened with that, and what your involvement is with it and your interest.
Yeah, for sure. It's the 20-year anniversary this month, and tomorrow morning is 20 years that they got arrested. It's Mohammed and Malvo. So really good timing that we did it, and it inspired me to write about it. I just finished doing over 50 books so far in 1 year. I even wrote a book about that, how I wrote and published 50 books in 1 year. So pretty cool. But the Beltway, I call this book the Beltway Killers, which is also known as the DC Snipers. And I'll give your audience who are not familiar with it. It's been 20 years ago. This happened in October 2002, and they actually started in February. But give it a little background on Mohammed and Malvo. And actually, John Mohammed's real name was John Williams. He would later convert to Islam back in the early 2000s. He was very angry about what was going on in his life. He had a bad marriage. He was divorced. He had lost custody of his children, and he met Malvo, who was at the time back in 2000, 2001. He was 15, 16 years old, right? He met him in Antigua, Caribbean island. He was abandoned by his mom, pretty much, who was Jamaican, and he took him under his wing, almost like a father figure. But he had other reasons why he did that. It wasn't because he wanted to be a good guy. He wanted to manipulate and control him and use him down the road for his agenda, which would later be to make him like an assassin, a sicario, a killer. That's what his motivation was with Malvo. And he was impressionable, and he needed that attention and love, which a child does need, right? When you're 15, 16, and he preyed on that. And Mohammed was prior military. He was out of Louisiana. He was a reservist, and he was out of National Guard. So he had the weapons training, and he was a good marksman. He scored very high. I was reading on his scores. So that would come in handy. He knew how to shoot. He knew how to shoot a rifle, and he would train Malvo how to do that, because he would end up being the shooter while Mohammed drove the car. I'll explain a little more detail how this transition. If you haven't seen it, you can go online, and you can see the pictures, how they converted their 1990 Chevy Caprice into a sniper's nest. Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. They converted to a sniper's nest where Malvo will be in the back to take the seat down. He'll have there, and they have a hole in the back of the vehicle. He'll punch out the muzzle, and then he'll put the sights and optics set up on it, and he will shoot the target, boom, boom, and then they'll drive off.
Wow.
So how did this all start? So that was part of the issue there. He was controlling, manipulating him. He would later bring him to Tacoma, Washington. He would come back from the Caribbean, come out there, and they would start training and doing things. And he would tell him how life wasn't fair, what I was reading about, how upset he was about the divorce, feeling that being racial injustice in the country is going on. There's many factors, and he was angry, and he wanted to take out. He came up with this plan that we could terrorize the country by shooting a lot of people and robbing, stealing, killing, and that became a plan of his. But he had to train Malvo to be a killer, how to be an assassin. So they would practice, they would train. And it first started, the shooting spree, in February 2002 in Tacoma. There was a house there in the block we used to live, and he blamed one of his neighbors for instigating or starting the divorce with his wife. So he wanted Malvo to kill this lady, right? To go up to the door, ring the doorbell, and shoot her point blank range and kill her, right? But what happens is the niece opens the door, and she's maybe late teens, early 20s. He starts a conversation, and then he blasts her and kills her. And then comes back to that. And Mohammed said, "You killed?" They said, "No, it was someone else." I said, "But you killed her." I said, "Yeah." Okay, that's a good start. and that's where they start. And they start up in Washington. They go to Arizona. They kill a guy who's playing golf on a golf course. These are random people. They just start killing random people and start. And it wouldn't be until later, after they get arrested, that a lot of the stuff starts getting pieced together. That they have started doing all this massive killing spree throughout the country.
So there was no connection with, with
Not
a lot of
right
them.
away. It would be in late October where the
Oh,
connections would match up, because we would end up be chasing false leads, like a white box truck was seen leaving one of the scenes, and those some leads. So they start shooting. Also, they do the same in Louisiana. They do armed robberies in Alabama. They're killing people, but they're leaving the areas, so it's not being pieced together, right? Because they're in a Chevy Caprice, they're shooting, they're killing, and they're leaving. And then it's October 2002, and now you're looking at the D.C. metro area, right? You're looking at D.C., Maryland, Virginia, and they end up killing in about early October about 6 people in 15 hours.
really? And
Yeah,
just all over the
they start
area,
in
or
D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, right?
and
The
what was
greater
the
Washington,
connection with all
greater
those
Washington
people?
area, right. So that gets, obviously the country's attention, that gets the world's attention, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden you see a mass response. We got a problem, because this is a year. Just think about 9/11, 2001, right? This is a little over a year, and
Yeah.
they're not calling it a terrorist attack, but these guys are terrorizing the country, right?
Hmm.
Because they're just killing randomly, because the guy's upset. He's using this kid, and they're killing random people. I mean, you could have been at a Home Depot parking lot. You could have been at Shoppers. You could have been at a gas station. You could have been anywhere, and you're getting killed. And it's like it's scary. People were getting really scared. They were putting tarps covering the gas stations so people can cover up. I remember. So ATF responds, and I'm a year out of the academy. It's 2001 when I left to finish academy. It's 2002, and I'm out there, and we go out, and we're following the leads. We're setting up surveillance. We're setting up later on payphones where these guys will end up later. They're pretty much snubbing their nose to the police. There was Chief Moose out there, and he was the face from Montgomery County Police Department, and they were pretty much snubbing their nose and saying, "Call me God," leaving tarot cards at the scenes. It was terrifying for people, because for a while we weren't sure where it was coming from until we started piecing it more together. You had the phone calls, you get the evidence. Eventually, one of the cards evidence they're shooting at a school matched the print Mabo had in the state of Washington, that then matches part of the shooting that happened in Montgomery, Alabama. So then all of a sudden we identify Mabo, and then it shows the ties with Muhammad. So then we find out the vehicle. So things change quickly there, but it ends up being almost 17 killed throughout the country in this mass shooting spree, and 10 killed in the DC area. So that was pretty intense in October. And tomorrow in the morning will be the 20th anniversary of these guys who were arrested, which is October 24th.
Yeah.
So they get
Kind of.
arrested, and it was a rest stop in Maryland off I-70.
So kind of talk about the day of the arrest. How did that go down?
Yeah, and I'll tell a little bit what we did. It happened once the information was out there. They were at a rest stop, and they were sleeping. I guess you weren't supposed to be sleeping there, and I guess they got the attention of a trooper, and they already had the information was coming out once the vehicle was identified. It was this with the New Jersey license plate, and he put two and two together, and they were arrested without without an incident, which was a good thing, because they had already killed enough people.
Yeah.
That's how that was a lucky break, which was good. But these guys could have been stopped earlier, because they were always like minutes ahead. After a shooting, they would take off. It went all the way from Ashland all the way to Maryland. There's one shooting in D.C. And I remember I was part of a briefing at the Richmond office, and we were doing a lot of surveillance. But like I said, we had bad information at the beginning, the box truck, and then it got better when you start listening to some of the calls you were making to the chief. And then they left for ransom notes. They wanted money for the shootings to stop. They were doing different things where it was going to make it easier to get caught, because obviously when you start doing things a lot, you're leaving prints behind. You're doing things and leaving phone calls. And I listened to one of the phone calls they made, because I was talking to an intel officer who worked for the FBI, and we're there for a briefing, and he was from Miami. And he said, "Hey, why don't you listen to this phone call and see where you think this accent's from?" Because I'm from South Florida.
Hmm.
And I heard it, and it was Marvel. And I thought it was a Jamaican accent. And I later find out that Marvel, family was from Jamaica. So all those little things, play a factor in catching these kind of guys. So It was scary times. I remember that the region was terrified. It was horrible, and it was 3 tough weeks, three horrible weeks in October in this area. No doubt about that. And I think the country was relieved when they finally were arrested. Muhammad would be executed in Virginia. Both were convicted. He would be executed in Virginia in 2009. Pretty quick.
Damn.
And Mavo got life, but he also pled to life in other states. So he'll spend the rest of his life in state custody somewhere, either
Is
Maryland, Virginia, wherever he ends up. But
he's
yeah,
still
Muhammad
alive?
was executed pretty quick. He was the one that really manipulated and used him. And on the cover of my book, Beltway Killers, the director congratulated, because it's dangerous work, because we're in the areas where these guys are shooting, and we're trying to do surveillance. We're trying to figure out what's going on. We're doing interviews, and who knows? We could have been targets ourselves. When you're in an area where they're shooting and they're staying around, they may shoot more people. So he was nice enough. We received recommendation. We received a certificate and a nice coin, and I put on my cover that has a DC sniper case. And it's, if you look at it, you can see it. So that was nice too. So the work was gratifying at the end, but it was for a guy out of the academy for a year, it was pretty intense.
Yeah, and now you go on to writing a book about it. So what kind
20 years
of
later, wow.
20 years? So that's what did that kind of want to inspire you to make this book, was because the 20-year anniversary that was coming up then?
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking about it, and I saw that, and I was thinking, man, 2002. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years. So I started thinking and researching, and there's more stuff that came out that you don't know, because obviously once the arrests come out and everything, you move on with your other cases and everything else, and then you realize, oh, okay, this came out of this. They pieced this together here. This happened here. So if you want to know more about these two guys, Muhammad and Mavo, it's a good read. Like, my books are super long, but then you get an idea where you want to keep on going and looking at more information. So I think that they would definitely like this book.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty interesting, man, and you got to be a part of this case. It's
Yeah,
it's a sad thing, you know what I mean? But
it's the work we do, and that's the kind of work ATF does. ATF responds to a lot of these, active shooters. These guys who are involved in shootings, and I pretty much call them terrorists. They were domestic terrorists. They're terrorizing the country. They weren't called that then, but that's what they pretty much did to the country. ATF responds to a lot of the cases, often the FBI, other federal agencies also. And it's good they work as a team, because not always you do. And when you see something like that, you have to catch some really bad guys. So that's something that I won't forget.
Yeah, and what was the teamwork like that you experienced when these bad things were going on?
Yeah, you're working together. You're in whatever shift, whatever assignment you have, whatever intel they tell you, hey, listen, I want you to sit up on these payphones where they used, for example, and you're sitting up on a midnight shift or whatever shift, you do it. I mean, you just work together. You shouldn't be any complaining about, hey, I don't want to do this, or hey, let's work doing this, and whatever it takes to catch these guys, because obviously people are dying, right?
Yeah,
And
and
we got to
it's
stop this as soon as possible. Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
being
especially
killed. They're being hunted. They're being hunted pretty much. Put in the bullseye and a couple shots, and off they go. And that Chevy Caprice. So you haven't seen the pictures? You can go online and you can see how they had set up the Chevy Caprice, and the sniper, like I said, sniper's nest. He had back there. He pokes out the muzzle, right? He does his shots, and then boom, off they go.
So and they were just using snipers as they went.
Yeah, they had a Bushmaster 223 rifle,
Mm-hmm.
right? He had like an EOTech on it, optics out there. So, and he was back there, shot a few rounds, and off they were moving. So people really, and then you retract the weapon, and it's just a car leaving, right? A parking lot. Very,
And
very
nobody,
creative,
yeah,
very creative in his part to come up with this idea. Very cunning, very creative, but very, diabolical, right? Very
yeah.
evil.
No, I
Very
know.
evil. No
Yeah.
doubt about that. Evil man, a killer, 17 dead, a lot more injured. It's real bad.
So there was a lot of people that did end up getting shot but surviving.
Yeah. There were over 10 that were shot and survived too. So, I mean, sometimes there were guys that early before they came to DC, some guy was changing his tires, and they were ambushed this guy and shoot him, and he was fortunate enough to be able to make it to the local hospital and survive. So they picked anybody. Yeah, your poor guy changed your tire. They robbed him for his wallet. They shot him, but he survived. Others are not so lucky. You're living a business, or they go to like Montgomery, Alabama. They rob, I think it was a liquor store, and but they left their prints behind. They shoot some of the clerks there. They survived.
Hmm.
So
So when it came down to their overall motive, did they ever come out and just straight up say what they wanted and why they were mad?
It's hard to decide with Muhammad, but everything I've read and looked into was that obviously his divorce
Hmm.
really angered him a lot, and some people thought that he was using the shootings as a way to cover up if he goes after him. But some people think that maybe at the end they want to get ransom money, for shootings to stop. Maybe they thought this was a way to make $10 million. So, I mean, was it money the motive? Was it to terrorize? Was he angry with what was going on? Like I said, life is not fair. There's a lot of factors going there. We know one thing, that definitely Malvo was manipulated to be used like this
Yeah.
as an assassin. That's what he became. He became his assassin, right? His Sicario, his
Did
killer.
did they ever receive any money from like the government or anything, for these ransoms or anything like that ever?
No.
Yeah. So how did they I guess how did they avoid giving them money? And what because remember you said they were like calling and stuff like that. How did
Yeah.
those?
Yeah. No. I remember it was a lot of conversations trying to figure it out, but no, there was not going to be until we clearly found out who they were. That was not going to be, I don't think, an option at the time.
Yeah.
What was going on?
Yeah.
So I remember the Chief Moose, who was the face of the investigation out of Maryland. He would end up. I think he stepped down later because of some controversy, and he just passed away last year.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
something else I was remembering and thinking about when I wrote the book, and that's also in there. So I think it's interesting, really good. I think it's a good book. And if you don't know much about it, it's been 20 years. You can learn some things about what happened, and it's a sad, tragic history of our country, but true what happened with these two guys.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to your next book that you came out with was with El Chapo, right?
Yeah, yeah. From poverty to drug lord to the supermax, right?
Yeah. And he escaped a few times in between.
Yeah,
you know.
and that's why he's in our supermax in Florence, Colorado, because the
Yeah.
Mexicans government couldn't hold him, not just once, but twice. I think there was a third time even before these two big ones that people know about. It's just and that's one thing I want people to understand is that the level of corruption with the cartels, with the government and officials is enormous,
Yeah.
and the way they pay out, because there's no reason after the first time, and I mentioned in my book, I mean, he pretty much bribed the officials. He's pushed out in a laundry basket covered with towels, pushed out the front door into a vehicle, and he disappears. That's the first time. That's how he gets out. Unbelievable, right? And,
What
and
about?
he and
Oh,
he's
go
gone
ahead.
he's a fugitive for over 14 years.
Yeah.
Over 14 years a fugitive. A lot of people think that this came out in a trial in 2019, and there was a witness testify this that it was there that said that the reason why, because the president at the time when this was happening, Peña Nieto, took $100 million bribe
Huh.
to look the other way, not to look for him, to leave him alone. And he offered, I guess originally he wanted, according to witness testimony, he wanted over 250 million, and he said no, you get 100 million.
Jeez.
And he took it. So if you got the president allegedly on the take, we don't have an equal partner. And I've answered this question before. People ask me, "Are we winning the war on drugs?" No, we're losing badly because we have a partner like Mexico, not an equal partner that's completely corrupt and involved. They're embedded. They're embedded in the conspiracy. When you have a lot of these officials, they're involved from top to bottom. It's really hard. And then the second one, it's unbelievable. It's like something from a movie where you had a underground tunnel
Hmm.
built. I mean, this is a high security prison. That
Yeah.
shows the level of corruption, the pay amount, where he has this mile tunnel, 33 feet deep, built there, where it's big enough where you even had artificial lighting, air ducts. I mean, this is a professional tunnel where I heard the cartels even went to Europe to study how to build a professional tunnel like that. But allegedly, El Chapo was getting a little nervous. He said, "You guys are getting too loud. I can hear you."
Really?
So if he could hear them, everybody else could hear them.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
they had this house that's being built a mile away from the prison, right?
Yeah.
And this tunnel comes all the way under, up to his shower, right? And there's a little ladder for him to climb down, go on a motorcycle, ride all the way to the house, and boom, he disappeared.
Yeah. I remember seeing that, man, back in high school. I mean, that was everywhere, like all over
El Chapo.
Facebook and everything. That went viral. Yeah, so I remember seeing that, him going down there and just disappearing.
And then Peña Nieto has the audacity. He was president at the time to say, "I'm shocked and awe." But we find out later that supposedly he took a huge bribe. Allegedly took a huge bribe. I mean, that's what's out there. That's what they testified that he did, and they were witnesses said that he did, and that's a
Yeah.
problem. I'm not sure if Lopez Obrador, the current president, is much better
Mhm.
because a lot of people accuse him of being very soft with cartel leadership, and the cartels are getting even stronger. CJNG, it's another book that I'm working on. Which, if you don't know what CJ is, it's the Jalisco New Generation, Nueva Generación, which used to be allies with Sinaloa, and guys who used to work in conjunction with them, like Mencho Cervantes, right? And all of a sudden, they have risen up in the ranks in power, and they're very dangerous. They're very brutal, and they use a lot of tactics, have high firepower. He used to be a police officer, actually,
Really?
and then he joined the cartels. He was actually in the United States illegally selling drugs, was
Mhm.
convicted, deported in the early 90s, became a police officer in Jalisco, and then he joined the Millennium Cartel. He would later splinter it into what is today CJNG, which is a huge
Yeah.
rival. Really violent. I mean, these guys back in 2015 in Jalisco sent a message and they try and they're a little different than Los Zetas. They're always at war on Los Zetas disease because Los Zetas didn't target innocent people, right? Those who are not involved. These guys go involved. If you're an enemy, we're going to kill you, right? But you have to be involved in the drug game. They don't like to target innocent people and do extortion. What I've been reading and studying these guys and kidnap them and killing them, well, Zetas were brutal. I mean, if you haven't seen what kind of stuff they just target people for, hey, I want to target kill. You have nothing to do with it. You know, the famous scene where they hijack these buses, right? Near Juarez, right? And they bring them in and they commit House of Horrors because they can. They do like a Hunger Game type situation where let's say it's 20 people and say first round, you get a hammer, you get a club, the winner survives type thing, right? And they show them they killing each other and stuff like that. And then if you survive, whatever rounds, 6, 7 rounds, they say, okay, yeah, I can see you're a killer. Offer your job as Sicario with us. I think that's an offer you can't refuse, right?
Yeah. No, I remember you saying that. Yeah. No, there's no
I
way.
don't think you can refuse that.
No, no, they'll just put a bullet in you right
They'll put
after.
here if you get lucky. That's a nice
Yeah.
way out. These
Yeah.
guys don't like to. These guys don't like to kill that way. They like to do horrible things. They like to blow torches, dismember you while you're still alive, seal the wound so you don't bleed out, and keep on going with you. The mafia guys. They like to kill you pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
No, no, these guys don't. They're a little more. They're bloodthirsty, and they enjoy.
Yeah.
It. The Zetas are notorious for that. They're their military wing. They were the extremist part of the Gulf Cartel that split and became pretty much how violent they are. But CJ&G is as violent as these guys are. I mean, they have some high firepower. And I was writing about this. They have RPGs, right? They're shooting down police helicopters. That's some serious. So in 2015, they ambushed the police in Jalisco, and they killed 15 in an ambush, and injured like 4 or 5 other ones. So they're afraid of no one, and they go after. And he was former law enforcement, right? Former dirty, obviously dirty. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't even say he's really law enforcement. That's anybody who's involved in this kind of conduct. It really wasn't a cop. He probably was dirty from the beginning, and because he was a convicted drug dealer in the United States, got deported, went into policing. He probably just continued those practices, which is unfortunate, and then did that with the cartels. And now he's risen to the top of the rank, top of the food chain with CNG, and probably is the #1 rival. So that book's coming out, the most dangerous drug cartel in the world, CJNG. That's the name of the book. Should be coming out in a week or so, and I'm working on that. The rival El Chapo. I mean, that's those two. If you don't know much of El Chapo, there, Guzman. I mean, so we'll continue the story after he gets out. Right?
Yeah.
He makes
Go
an
ahead.
amazing escape in the moped, right? In the motorcycle through the tunnel. He's out there. And then if you haven't seen this, Rolling Stone magazine had Sean Penn and Kate Del Castillo go interview him in the mountains in Sinaloa. If you can believe that. He's the most wanted man in the world, but yet Sean Penn, if you haven't read this article, goes out there, entertaining article he wrote out there, and she translates, and the stuff El Chapo says in the Sierra Madre mountains, because he's also a master of having tunnels. So no matter where he sets up, they call him El Rápido también, because he's so quick to escape. The guy is the master of tunnels. He's unbelievable. And they interview him, and the stuff he says there about how many people he sold more drugs, and he said that anybody other than Pablo Escobar, anybody in history world. He was the biggest drug dealer. He killed thousands of people because obviously once you climb up, to get there you have to kill a lot, and once you're at the top, you order a lot of killings. Like the mafia, right? All
Yeah.
these guys, you look at Bugsy Siegel, you look at Al Capone. These guys were all killers. Murders, Murder Inc. Right?
Yeah.
Uh, they have to kill. And the same with the Mexican cartels. These guys, the guys who can kill and kill a lot, they get the respect, and then they climb up, and then they order the killings, and that's how they surround with killers, and then they surround with killers because the only thing these guys respect is one thing: force, right? Brutal force, and that's what they do. So if you haven't seen that article, that's unbelievable. He almost gets captured because they're tracking her phone. Right, authorities were almost tracking his phone, and he just escapes with one of his tunnels, and just barely. If not, he would have been captured after that
Yeah.
interview. But he will be
So
captured later.
yeah, and that's what I wonder. Like, so did these people get in trouble for going and meeting with this fugitive while he was on the
No,
run?
no,
Is that
no.
even illegal, or I mean, where does that stand?
Yeah, no. I what I've read in the article is fine, and they did it, and I guess maybe they were trying to see if they could catch him with this interview.
Huh.
They got close.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
got
yeah, I guess
close.
it kind of makes sense because if they were tracking the phone and everything,
Yeah,
obviously they're going to let the interview go
they came
down.
very close, but the guy's quick. The guy's quick. He's always been quick. Rápido. They also called that was the other nickname he had, and they almost got him there, but they would get him a few months later. And this time, if they would have gone, if he would have stayed in a Mexican prison, it would have been the same disaster again because the corruption so bad. So he got extradited to the United States. He went to the Eastern District, New York, in Brooklyn, long trial, and he was convicted and sentenced to life. But the condition was from Lopez Obrador was that the president that he would not be sentenced to death. He
So
couldn't be
that's
executed.
the only way they're going to let the U.S.
Let
take
El
over.
Chapo go out there. So that now they weren't able to hold him down. They couldn't keep his problem. There was, his problem, right? Mexico's problem. Now we're paying the bill in over there in Florence, Colorado, for the bill for El Chapo. But he's complaining now. He's filing some appeal himself, some bogus appeal I just saw the other day, saying he wants a new trial. He said he had incompetent defense attorneys and the government was unfair. You know how it is. He wants another bite of the apple, and he doesn't even have an attorney write the filings. He wrote it himself, so that's kind of odd and strange.
So he's still definitely trying to get out. Wow, how old is he
He's trying
now?
something. He's in his 50s, but
Oh,
I
only
think this
50s.
is the end for him. This is
Wow.
the end for El Chapo, man. He's not getting out of the Supermax. This is it for him.
Yeah. No, I mean, after, like you said, being able to order all these deaths and
Yeah,
selling drugs and all
he's a
that,
killer.
there's
He's a killer. He's ruined lives, destroyed lives. He needs to, and he says he's miserable there. Well, he's lucky. That's all he's going to get. I mean, he gets to live in that little cell, and that's it. And they don't other places. Yeah, it would be a lot worse situation, a lot worse death for him. His sons, allegedly, little chapitos, they call him, right? He has 4 sons that they're also trying to run the organization. So there's
wow.
also the U.S. also has a reward for their whereabouts, for their capture.
Damn.
So,
So
it's
so the
tough.
U.S. wants to take them in too.
Yeah, yeah. Los
Wow.
Chapitos. Yeah,
Damn. So
yeah.
we'll
El
keep
Mencho,
going.
all these guys. I mean, these guys one after, but we end up taking them all because it just appears that obviously there's conspiracy and we have charges, but we wish we had a better partner that could handle this because the corruption is so unfortunate. And of course, if we weren't using the drugs, right, there'll be other drug business. So it has to be a combination. This is not working. I always say we're not winning the war on drugs. It has to be people stop using treatment, helping. You have to get that out there because that's the only way we're really going to win this is just stopping and helping people with their addictions because people have massive, massive addictions, not just for cocaine, but heroin, pills, you name it. They got addictions. And maybe a lot of it has to do with their personal lives and making bad decisions. Obviously, then they get stuck to it. So all these factors is a complicated issue and all these things have to be in play.
Yeah. I
And I
mean,
write about that.
so why do you think the cartels are so powerful? Because they're ruthless and don't,
Oh my
they
God,
don't
the
care to
money,
go kill.
the ruthless, they have the weapons and the money. Like I said, I think I mentioned your show, another show. The Gambino family at its height was making $500 million a year, in the
Yeah.
80s when they were doing. But a lot of the rackets they had, like gambling has gone away. Alcohol is now, it's legal. Marijuana is legal.
Mhm.
Some of the drugs, but they're not really, if you're going to do in the drug business, you're directly or indirectly working for the cartels because it all now goes through Mexico. So they're making like, according to the Mexican government, like 12, $15 billion a year, easy, right? And that's just Sinaloa. CJ&Gs also, these guys are making sick money, right? So they can buy anybody. And that's what they do. They just have all this money and they're not afraid to use force,
Right.
right? They're
Yeah.
not afraid. In fact, they encourage it. They train it early as sicarios. They train these guys. I mean, this guy El Mencho, and just like El Chapo, by the time they're mid-teenagers, they drop out of, in person, a lot of these guys drop out of school early. They said El Chapo and this guy are pretty much illiterate, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
So
These guys are illiterate dropouts that end up going to violence, and that's what they know. And
yeah,
that's what they do. And they
yeah,
kill early. So they're very desensitized. To them, life is cheap, means nothing. You're in my way. I'll give an example of Chapo, a family member. This was an indictment he was convicted of in the trial. A cousin of his, he had a big meeting plan. He said he couldn't make it. He said he was going to be out of town. And they saw him locally. He said, "Oh, really?" He told his guys, bring him in, interrogate him, and then execute him. It was a cousin. He didn't show up to a meeting. He lied to him. He has to make an example of him. I told the other story. Another guy he had a beef with. They worked it out, and another drug lord, and he extended his hand in good faith. The guy said, "No, I'm good." He didn't want to shake his hand. He said, "Oh,
yeah,
really? You embarrassed me like that?" So what happens is he called his sicarios and said, "Hey, they're going to be at the movie theater with his wife. When they come out, kill him." He didn't shake my hand. He disrespected me. So
jeez,
that's how these guys are, man. And that's how they start at a young age. So to them, that's the way life is. So
yeah.
if you like
And
these stories, you find it interesting, read more about it for sure. You can see what's south of the border and a lot of evil, crazy stuff going on down there.
yeah, I mean, that's what like how you said with the whole corruption thing. I wonder, say, say, someone offered you that, like, like if they're like, well, we want to buy you off, or else El Chapo's going to have you whacked. I mean, that's what these guys say, and
Yeah.
then so I think that factors in with them not wanting to say no to him, obviously, because or else they don't take the money and they're going to be gone.
Yeah. See, the carrot or the stick, right? You
Yep.
don't take the carrot, here comes the stick. And the stick is not just for you. That's going to be for your whole family too, and anybody else. And it's not just sometimes, a bullet in your head. It's going to be really dismembering and bad things. And, that's why a lot of these rivals, man, you see the beheadings, right?
Yeah.
You see the heads hanging and you see all these bad things happening, what these guys do to each other. They really don't, and they get so desensitized to them. It's just, hey, this is what we're going to do so-and-so. Okay. I'm going to just have lunch.
Yeah. It's another
Another world.
life, man. It's a
Yeah.
whole nother world, man.
No, cartel life is a brutal, vicious, bloodthirsty world, and you're racing that. That's all you know, and that's why a lot of these guys they know that these guys have dead by their 20s and 30s, right?
Yeah. So
They
now
live,
that
wild and crazy, and that's how they go, and they're done. They get burnt out, and that's it because they're starting at 14, 15, even younger. They're dropouts, and this is what they do. They can't do anything else, right?
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that's a sad thing, man.
It's
Because
good
that's what
reads. I
makes
think
it
people
cool.
like it. It's good reads and stuff. So those are some good books there. They can look at. With that, now, I wrote about 4 other ones. So you can look at El Chapo. You can look at the other cartels I've written about, which is the Mexican crime syndicates, which I think is good. Also, I'm writing this one on CJNG, and I also did a book on ATF Mexican drug cartels: a reality after Fast and Furious. And for those
Yeah.
who don't know, that happened back in the 2000s, 2010, 11, which was a gun walking disaster operation, letting guns where they should have been seized in the United States, let go to the cartels in Mexico, hoping to be recovered so they can be traced, which was a bad idea. And fortunately, because that's the way that good people sometimes or police can get killed, and the guns should have been stopped. So you can read all about that. But on the other point too, yeah, those guns should have gone, and we learned a lot from that operation. But the cartels are very good on smuggling the weapons down south.
Yeah.
They're very good at that. They're very good at getting what they need. So that's the problem with and Mexico has strict gun laws, and that's the problem when you have strict gun laws. Even when you have strict gun laws, the bad guys in the black market still, and they get whatever they want. They own whatever they want. They have everything they want, and good people are restricted and they become victimized.
Yeah,
So
that's true. And that's what's a big issue with our thing, here in the US, with people wanting to take away the guns and all that, and people not
uh,
wanting to give them up, because it's like you said, the bad guys have them, they still get them. And then, say someone wants to defend themselves from that. What do you do? I mean, you got nothing.
yeah, are you going to go to bear country without your weapon? I hope not. Hope you don't go with grizzlies with a little bear spray, right? And a
No, I
hungry
don't.
grizzly's not going to stop with that bear spray of yours.
No,
It's
they're
coming
not.
at you real quick, and it's not going to harm. So you need to be prepared and armed. So you go in some locations, you got to be prepared
Yeah. It's
because they're going
true.
to come and take everything. You
Yeah.
carjack, you're robbed. It's like if you now I've said it before, and I've said in other shows there. It's important to be able to protect your family in your house and have some weapons. But if you don't shoot, you don't practice, you don't know how to use your pistol well, right? And all of a sudden you got home invaders coming in. That's not the first time to practice see how the gun works, because they're going to take it away from you. Because you're going to be nervous. You better be comfortable with it and be proficient how to use it, right? Because if not, it's going to be bad news.
You're going to freeze up.
You're going to freeze up. You're going to choke, or worse, they're going to do worse things to you and your family. So those are things to learn. And it's going to take the police, like I said, 15, 20, 30 minutes to get out there. And not a lot of bad things can happen during that time. So
yeah, only takes a second for something to change. You know what I mean? Something to happen.
For sure. So yeah, that's why these gun-free zones, you know what gun-free zones mean? That the bad guys know, hey, it's open season.
Yeah.
Because, good people don't want to cop a felony, right?
No, not at all.
So they know that. You got to get the car and say, oh, well, I don't care. I don't follow the laws. So this is easy targets. So those are some of the things I talk about in my books. And I think if you like this conversation, I think you'll find it fascinating. You'll find it on Amazon. So
yeah. I was going to say, so moving on to the last topic we were going to touch on was with you responding to something in Virginia. Kind of talk about that case.
Oh, the DC sniper case?
Oh, okay. That was that one. My bad.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was good. And at the end, which is irony, is that if I retired, I promoted. I was undercover. For those who don't know, I wrote. I don't know if you can see my poster there.
Oh yeah, in the back, the ATF one.
Yeah, ATF Undercover, based on my book, and I tell the stories. And I was mostly undercover case agent, but I decided to promote the end of my career. I went to headquarters. So I spent a lot of time now in Virginia. That's where I live. I retired here, and I'm here. So it's not unusual for me to pass by a certain area and remember, oh, that's where a shooting was in the DC case, or over here at the gas station or the shopping center. And I remember those things. So this is the payphone he might have used and stuff. So I do remember that. It was a big case. It captivated the country. And if you, especially after 9/11, people were like thinking, what else is coming next? Well, This was a big thing.
Yeah.
This was a real big thing. So
yeah, shit, I would have only been, what, you said 2001, 2002?
2.
Yeah, so I would have only been 2 years old when all that happened. So
so a lot of people, exactly, younger generation, can say, you know what, this is something cool I want to read about. Yeah. So if you don't know much about it, I think it's the Beltway Killers is what I call it. Read about it. You can see the cool pictures in there. You can see the sniper's nest, how they sit up in that Chevy Caprice. Unbelievable things. Their whole lives and what they did. So I think all these books, if you don't know much about El Chapo, El Mencho, watch out. These 4 letters, CJNG, remember it, because they're going to be the big boys now. They're the big boys. There was a rumor, I'll put this out there, that El Mencho, they thought he might have died, right? That was possibly reported a few months ago because he has some health issues, kidney issues, what I was reading. So he's hubbed pretty much in Guadalajara, in that area, Jalisco, right? Jalisco State is where they control. And supposedly he had some health issues, and they said someone reported he passed away. A lot of people don't think it happened. The president of Mexico addressed this and said they don't believe El Mencho's dead. They think it was a hoax just to get him off the track, because that's a big reward for him to be captured. $10 million from the U.S., 30 million Mexican pesos, right? Yeah. Right. So that's a lot of money that's out there to capture him. He is now the El Chapo of the country, right? El Chapo's gone, and El Chapitos haven't stepped up enough where Sonola's big, but these guys might be the boys to take over.
Damn. So are you going to go into writing another book about El Chapo and, his sons and this guy
maybe down the road? Yeah, I'm doing right now El Mencho, which I think is going to be a good one. Yeah. And we'll see what happens with him. I don't think, I have a hard time believing he may have some health issues that he's going to spend the next 20 years, right? I think he'll find a way to kill himself.
So is there nothing in there with him at all? Like, do you know what it looks like in there, where he's at?
What he looks like?
No, I mean, like, what's in there? I mean, is he just sitting there with nothing at all? Because there's no.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his daily routine is, but it's not the life he had before. No, I mean, I'll give you another example what a sick guy he was. And this came out in the trial and indictment, and according to witnesses. He had a thing for young girls, right? And 14, 15, and it wasn't uncommon for him these crazy parties up, because he's set up in the Sinaloa mountains, right? He has to be able to show escape, he has to protect himself, and have these parties where he brings these young girls, have them drugged up, and they have sex with them, right? And then they go. He would call them pretty much. That was his vitamins that gave him life. He's a sick kind of guy. So he's where he should belong. He's caused so many between death and rapes and everything else he's done, and drug trafficker. Like I say, he told Champagne he's probably the biggest drug trafficker in the history of the world. Okay,
Yeah.
and one of the biggest murderers too. So
Yeah.
he's in a good place. He belongs, and I don't think he says they say he's miserable, angry. I don't see him lasting much longer. I won't be surprised he tries to commit suicide or something happens. So we'll see. The things to look forward to. I think good topics and stuff. So these are all good things to look at. And of course, you can look at our previous show too. We talked about Italian mafia and my background, my undercover cases and stuff. And those are all books and over 50 plus now. I'm at 50 plus. I also did one on Jimmy Hoffa. So
Yeah. So people that like the mob content
for sure.
and
Mafia, and hopefully we can do a show one day on the one percenters too. I'm doing this game very popular. I did one with Scott Bernstein. Shout out to Scott. Great show out there. He's really good. He's been following. He's from the Detroit area, so he knows Taco Bowman and he knows about the outlaws. And I'm Florida, and especially with ATF, big cases. It hasn't been a biker group that ATF or law enforcement hasn't infiltrated, taken down. And we have some good stories from the Mongols and the rivalry that's going on maybe in Florida with the outlaws and outlaw states. So if you like those kind of conversations, you can look at all my biker books too on the Mongols, the outlaws, Sonny Barger, Full Throttle, the life of Sonny Barger, which is pretty good. And I also did a one percenter book. So content of all types.
Yeah, well,
as a good ATF agent.
Yeah, well, that could probably be our part 3 then. You know what I mean?
If you want to do a one percenter one, for sure, we can talk a lot. You just look at the one with Scott Bernstein. I'll send you the link, and then we can take it from there and stuff. So it's a good show too. So it's all good stuff. A lot of content, and also do politics. So if you like politics, that's my background originally. Like I said, I was an accidental agent. I had a degree in political science and history, and started a master's in international relations at FIU. And I do a lot of politics too. So I wanted Joe Biden, the war in Ukraine. So if you like all these different things, talk about some of these dictators around the world, in China, Xi Jinping. I talk about Kim Jong-un in Korea, Gaddafi. It was in Libya. I mean, that Gaddafi is also a fascinating guy. If you don't know much about Muammar Gaddafi, interesting enemy, a big enemy in the 80s. And he was quieted down until his horrible death by his own people. So if you haven't seen that video, go on YouTube and look at Gaddafi's death and how he's killed on the streets of in Libya by his own.
Yeah. So everybody, basically in a nutshell, Ignacio got books about everything.
Everything you want, let me know. And if you have any suggestions, let him know. Let me know, and I'll look into it.
Yeah, maybe he might write a book that you inspire.
Yes, exactly. And we did that with shout out to Hollywood Wade. We did that with the one percenters, and that's how I ended up getting Sonny Barger, and then that's how I wrote a book on Doc Cavazos. We had a poll, and people started asking, and I started writing about it.
Okay, yeah.
So if you want to set up a poll, we can do that too.
Yeah, I think after the interview, I can make a poll on my community tab on YouTube, and you can choose a few topics that you'd like to talk about, or write a book about, and see what they pick.
Yeah, that's fine. I do that. I have people call me sometimes who I've done shows with, and they say, "Hey, this is very topical." And I said, "Can you do a book on this one, or what do you think?" And I said, "Yeah, I think it's good." Victor Bout's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Someone reached out to me and asked me about that, and I did a book on Victor Bout, especially with the exchange and what I thought about it. And I made a good book about that. If you were interested about that, very interesting. He's the merchant of the merchant of death, no doubt about that. So, and Brittany Griner is being set up. There's no doubt about it. There's no reason she should be doing 9 years for having small amounts of weed. That's a tactic by Putin to try to arrest Americans to try to get him out. It's no doubt he's a Russian asset being used, and too dangerous of a guy to trade out like that, for sure.
Yeah, so that is definitely a good one to talk about as well. With like with that guy that you did with, because like you said, that is a very controversial topic. Last month, or what was it, a few months ago, when all that stuff was going around, and that's always a good idea. So
Putin has a lot of Americans falsely arrested, and he's using leverage trying to get Victor Bout. Allegedly, Victor Bout, if you don't know, he was former KGB, part of the Soviet Union. He was if you haven't seen Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, that's based on his life. So you have a chance, take a look at that in 2005 and what he's done. He was taken down. I'm going to give it a nutshell because I'll talk about it later if you want. And DA Sting back in 2008 in Bangkok, it took a few months to set up that he was going to give guns to the FARC out of Colombia. and he was taken down. And he said he didn't care how the guns were going to be used. He said the enemy of the FARC is the enemy of his. You guys are going to kill Americans? I'm fine with that. I don't care if you kill a military. I don't care if you kill agents. I don't care, because that's the kind of person he was. He got popped in the sting, and now he's been sitting in a U.S. prison, I think, since 2009 or 10 when he was convicted.
Yeah, I guess.
And the only picture he has in his cell in Marion, Illinois, is of Putin supporting the war.
Really?
So he's playing his cards with him. He's hoping that he gets out with him. He's a former KGB guy also, just like Putin was. So that's what he's a dangerous guy. We let him out. He's back to business again. He'll disappear. He was in the shadows last time. He'll be back in the shadows again. So Victor Bout, this documentary's on him. Good movie by Nicolas Cage, Lord of War. Read my book on Victor Bout, the most dangerous firearms trafficker in the world.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do, Ignacio, like I did last time, I'll put your Amazon link in the description below. And with that link, everybody can see, because it'll be your profile one, all the books that you have. So,
Yeah,
we won't have to do them individually.
No, it's too many. And if you want to do the poll, let me know. We can talk about that.
We will. Yeah, once I drop it.
I think people will like that. And it's good because it's interactive. And it worked out well with Hollywood Wade, because then we did the whole 1%. I really did a deep dive with the 1%ers, Doc Cavazos, and ATF had a great investigation. Operation Black Rain. We infiltrated, and if you want, we could talk about that next time.
Okay. Yeah, well, sounds good, man. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Oh, good. Anytime, man. I enjoyed it, Adrian. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, what'd you think? Ignacio's always got some interesting topics to talk about. Please comment a key takeaway that you got from this video. Ignacio is going to be part of the documentary series that I've been working on about the American Mafia. Please hit subscribe if you want to be the first to get that when it comes out. Also, at the end of this video, you'll see mine and Ignacio's other interview. Please check that out. If you like this video, I know you'll like that one. Me and Ignacio are going to be running a poll in my community tab of 4 different topics that he would like to write his next book on. So vote your favorite topic, and it just might be the one that he writes next. And after the book comes out, me and Ignacio are going to do a show on it. And if you have any questions that you'd like me to bring up to him, please comment it on the community tab, and I'll be sure to ask him. Thanks again for watching.